Great. Okay. So welcome everybody. First of all, thank you for signing up and showing up. This is kind of our first community call for Tergar Retreats for the volunteers, which I'm really excited about. 15 people with less than a week's notice is great for me. So I basically wanted to introduce myself. I'm Zach. I've been working with Matthew to help get Tergar Retreats moving forward. So I want to introduce myself as one of your volunteer coordinators. And I also want to introduce Angelos and Ale, who have been helping me with some of the behind the scenes coordination. So they've been putting in a couple hours a week, really helping kind of get the structures in place so that way we can invite all of you to be a part of it. We are really early still, and there's a lot of things we need to figure out. So things are a little bit messy, things are a little bit unrefined. But the beauty of that is we get to bring in all of your voices this early, and we get to create something that we all want to be a part of, as opposed to whatever's in just my mind. So I'm really excited to have you all here. And I actually want to just open the floor here. I don't know if Angelos or Ali, if either of you want to jump on and say hi and maybe give us a minute or two about yourselves.
Sure. Hey, Ada, you want to go first?
Oh, no, it's okay. Go first, you.
Okay, hey everybody, good to see all of you here. I'm excited there are so many taking part here. My name is Angelos. I'm from Greece originally, but I mostly grew up in Germany. I've been a student of Mingo Rinpoche since a couple of years now, and also since last year I'm a student at the Tergar Institute, where I'm doing the multi-year program. And at the beginning of this year, I joined the Tergar Retreats project, where I'm mostly supporting the volunteer coordination remotely so far, and which I'm very happy to be part of. And next week, I'll be going for the first time to Podent, and I'll be there for the couple of days before the work week starts and the first couple of days of the work week. So I see some of you there, and as well, I'll be there for the summer event in August and the time leading up to that. So I guess I'll see probably more of you there. Yeah, excited to be here, and thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alejandra. I'm from Mexico. I'm a student from with Mingyur Rinpoche since 2016. I principally work with Tergar Mexico, and right now I'm a student in Tergar Institute as well. And here I am to help Tergar Retreats. My plan is to help with everything that it's lodging and housekeeping and moving the people for the Tergar inauguration. So welcome everybody. I'm glad. We need a lot of help. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you both. Yeah, and we do need a lot of help. So I'm really really appreciative of everybody who is here to volunteer their time. And so what I'd like to do here is I'm going to just kind of do a little introduction around what to expect today with the agenda, and then I'm going to pass it over to Matthew to talk about some of the work that he's been doing for the last, I don't know, 2 decades, I guess. So we did a little welcome, some intros from the volunteer coordinators. We're going to hear from Matthew next, a little bit about the history of Tergar Retreats and Matthew's personal journey. So kind of how his journey has merged with Tergar Retreats even forming and being a thing. And really some of the ways that we're thinking about people can be involved this year and kind of the potential of what's being built. I'm going to then talk a little bit about the April work week, which is coming up in 2 short weeks. And I will say it a couple of times, but we do still have room, and we'd love people that can participate either remote or in person, if that's possible. And then I'll talk a little bit about, specific help we need, some potential future work weeks. So obviously this was a little bit short notice, but if you can make it out in May or June or July, we have plenty more opportunities. So I'll talk a little bit about those. And then I just want to have kind of some closing notes, time for questions and answers, and just a few kind of orientation to what we're doing and how we're doing it so that way people can stay involved. And if you do have any questions, you can always put them in the chat, or there's a raise your hand function at the bottom middle, somewhere around where my finger is pointing. there's a reactions and you can raise your hand. So if you have a question during the call, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll call on you there. Okay. So Matthew Zumwalt has been, I guess, the core driver of Tergar Retreats for since its inception and probably for the last, I don't know, it seems like 8 years now. Um, he is a good friend of mine and a colleague, and I'm really excited to introduce him for you all. He's been a very special person, and to be able to make this happen is just an incredible thing. So I want to say thanks and pass it over to you, Matthew, to give us a little history.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Zach. Zach, can I ask you to unshare your screen so I can see everyone in gallery view? And so about me, hello. Now I get to see more of you. And I know some of you, but some of you are new faces. I have been studying with Kagyu teachers since, well, Tibetan since 1998. But Kagyu teacher since 2000, and I've been aspiring to do the 3-year retreat since about the year 2000 or 2001, and almost gone into multiple retreats, and it never quite worked out. Sorry, my dog's excited about some noise outside. And so I have, for a lot of that time, I first met Mingyur Rinpoche in 2006 and have wanted to do, just have always felt like I would love to do 3-year retreats specifically with Mingyur Rinpoche if possible. And by coincidence, I was living in Minneapolis when they set up Tergar in Minneapolis, where they set up the headquarters of Tergar International in Minneapolis. So just by luck, I was there when they showed up to set up shop and spin everything. So I got to watch Tergar come into existence as an international organization just by being a neighbor. But I had already known Mingyur Rinpoche at that point and was very excited. And um, and then, so where did Tergar Retreats come from? I think it's important to acknowledge that this is a new thing growing in a very large mandala of activity. So Tergar has been around, officially founded in 2008. There were activities before then already, but the emphasis in the emphasis in the time since then has been about reaching people where they're at in their busy lives in the world. So the highest priority was about getting the joy of living and path of liberation out there and getting it out there in a way that is accessible for people who are busy with lives and families and jobs. And that does not mean that Tergar and Mingyur Rinpoche don't value retreat. It's that we're wanting to reach as many people as possible, so it was important to lay the foundation. And now, finally, after 15 years, we have enough capacity to also have a whole function that's focused on retreats and residential retreats, and also similarly in parallel, the Institute coming into existence, which is about residential intensive study. And so we're finally at this point where people can go deeper and do more deeper intensive practice within the support of the container that's provided by this lineage and the mandala of Tergar. And so the way Tergar Retreat specifically was born was in 2019. Anas, can I ask? Oh, or my audio is muted. Was I muted that whole time?
No, I accidentally muted you going to mute them. Apologies.
Okay. And so the Tergar Retreats was born, backing up. Tergar was launched with a retreat. So they launched the beginning of Tergar by hosting a month-long retreat in Minnesota, and I believe there was also a long retreat. There was then a month-long retreat in Hong Kong a couple weeks later. So retreat has always been a big element in the thinking with Tergar as a whole, but we're only finally getting around to being able to spin this up. So 2019, I sat down with Rinpoche where I was at a turning point in my life where I could make space to do retreat myself, to retire early and do 3-year retreat. I said, I want to do retreat with you. I know he's had multiple times tried to set up 3-year retreat 4 Westerners, and it never quite worked out. There are a couple people who did retreat with him, and like Kunsang Palmo did retreat with him at Cherubling years ago. Um, and so I said, well, if what it takes to make it happen for me is that I make it happen for all your students, then I'll sign on to do that once I'm done with my then job. So that was the beginning of the creation of Tergar Retreats, which also, even from the beginning, we said, yes, we want to make the 3-year retreat, but shorter retreats is actually where we're going to reach the most people. So very, very few people have the opportunity to do a full 3-year retreat. Many more people can carve out a week or 2 weeks or maybe a month. And so it's the vision is not just to run a 3-year retreat. It is to have the 3-year retreat be sort of like the marquee program, where the majority of people are actually doing shorter retreats, shorter than 3 years being a short retreat in that framing. And so that began the search of where are we going to build the 3-year retreat? Where is this all going to happen? Down, fast forwarding a few years, now here we have this land in Portugal. The land is big enough that we'll use about a third of it for the 3-year retreat. And that leaves about 20 hectares of land for short retreats, for anything that's not the 3-year retreat. And so the focus of our attention in the short term is on getting the 3-year retreat built. So the focus of the resources and the attention and the planning is on building the 3-year retreat. But meanwhile, we have this land, we have the facilities, and we have some funding that we can use to make short retreats possible, or at least get the momentum moving of making it so this land has the capacity to be hosting short retreats in parallel with that 3-year retreat. So that's where it comes to all of you. So up until now, Tergar Retreats has been run by a relatively small group of volunteers who are all people who are very, very strongly established with the Tergar lineage. And so we've had a group that was very high trust, people who already knew each other, are strongly aligned, very familiar with the lineage, very familiar with Mingyur Rinpoche, but they're all very busy people with limited time. They're busy running other stuff for other parts of the Tergar Mandala. And so now we're transitioning into welcoming in a broader group of people and welcoming in the enthusiasm of a broader group of people who want to be part of this project. And we're beginning that adventure of finding alignment, building trust, and having the adventure, this adventure of making a retreat center together. So the way we're approaching that is the work of getting the 3-year retreat built is mainly involves professionals at this point. It's about architects and certified builders and licensing review by the city hall, and it's all very procedural and bureaucratic. And meanwhile, using the rest of the land to host people who want to come here and meditate is wide open. And so what we've done is as the way Mingyur Rinpoche usually puts it, we've thrown our backpack over the fence of saying we're gonna host this welcome weekend in the middle of August when Rinpoche comes to visit. So August, he's giving a talk on the 15th, which is a Friday in Coimbra. And then we'll have Saturday, which is the 16th, will be a party, a festa, welcome day, open day, welcoming Tergar people, welcoming anyone from the region. Rinpoche will be here. And then Sunday, the 17th, will be a meditation day. And so right now, we have a small group of people who've been doing some planning of framing what's going to happen, figuring out the logistics of this, but really all of the figuring out of how is that going to happen? If people want to come camp, what do we need to have in order to say, yes, you can come set up a tent and camp here? If people come and set up a tent, where are they going to shower? Where are the toilets? What are they going to eat? How is that food getting prepared? All of that is unanswered. So the default is if people want to come, no, they cannot come. And it's you who can change that. You and whoever we can draw into this, if they can get involved to help us create capacity to say yes to more people coming, more people staying here and being safe, being fed, being supported, all those things, then let's make that happen. So we have some funding available to make it happen. We have the land. We have my knowledge and connections, and then these work weeks are the beginning of getting people together to start uh, planning that out and answering the questions of mapping out between now and August what things have to happen in order for that party to be the party we want it to be. And I think that's it. That's my intro. Back to Zach.
Thanks, Matthew. That was really great. I think I'm going to take a quick pause here. Does anybody have any specific questions or anything you want to dive in more from anything that Matthew was speaking about? I definitely want to lean into this idea. You had said a big ball of potential, and that's what it feels like right now. You know, you are the first 17 people to be kind of invited in to help build this, and I find it both scary and exciting as like this opportunity to kind of like shape it into whatever it's going to become. You know, and that means there's a lot of work to be done and there's a lot of unknowns, but it also means like you really get to put like your energy and your kind of thumbprint on what is being built here. And you know, for me, that feels really exciting. It also brings you closer to all the brilliant people that come visit Matthew all the time in Pudentish. So, you know I've had experiences just sitting next to some of these meditators and being like, oh my gosh, like, you know, how lucky am I to sit here next to someone who's able to do this? So I'm really excited. Yeah, I don't see any hands. Anybody have any questions? Otherwise, we can keep going. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again, Matthew.
Yep.
Okay. And so Matthew touched on the welcome celebration. You know, originally we'd been calling this an inauguration, but we've changed the name. And so it's going to be a bit of a celebration. And the idea is Saturday, it's just going to be a bit of an open day. You know, it'll be a celebration. We'll have food. We'll have people there. Rinpoche will be there. Plenty of other people from around the mandala. And then Sunday, we're going to organize a one-day actual meditation and a blessing of the Quinta, which is the land that we're on. Uh, for many of the local people in Portugal, I think this will be their first experience with Buddhists and what we do there. So that'll be a fun experiment. We have this opportunity to really bring in the locals and make them feel welcome. And I'm really excited to see how kind of the two worlds overlap. And so we will have more information about the celebration over the next couple of weeks. If people do have questions, feel free to ask them. I'm currently building out an FAQ of things we think people will need to know about it. But we really want to get this information out soon so that way people can plan. One of the big things we've been talking about is where will people stay? And that's a core part of the volunteering work, I think, over the next couple months is establishing campsites or other spaces on the land for people to be able to come. Pudentes is a small town, and there isn't a lot of close local available places to stay. So doing something to invite more people in would be really helpful. Okay.
I'd like
So
to
I'm gonna
jump in with a little
yeah.
more about to give you a sense of where we're at with planning that celebration. We've mapped out three main groups, so like circles of people, that there is a small group of people who are focusing on just the basic framing. So this is like Antonia, so like people very connected to the Tergar lineage, just with the basic framing. How do we make sure that the events that we put on here are a really clear representation of the Tergar lineage and that it's framed right? Then a second group is focused on the logistics of all the stuff. Do we need an events tent? How do we reserve a events tent? Do we need porta potties? How are we going to feed everyone? Where are we arranging with caterers? All of the logistic stuff is another group. And then there's a third group specifically for the people who want to plan the activities, whether that's the activities on the meditation day and planning that out, or activities for people to do during the festa. So like, what are they doing while they're here? that day. And so those are the three kind of buckets. And the main ones that you can flow into are the logistics one and the planning the activities. But then as people who've expressed interest in volunteering, you also fall in this third category, which is sort of part of the logistics, which is increasing our capacity to let people sleep here. It's specifically making it possible for people to come for that weekend and stay here, because there are only so many hotel rooms around, there are only so many Airbnbs or nearby campsites. They're all going to be full. They're all approaching full already, because there's a lot of Tergar people who are interested in coming. There's a lot of Portuguese people already, Tergar people from Portugal who are excited to come. And then obviously the people who already live in the region, they're not going to be camping here. So the more we can do specifically on that front of building our capacity to welcome in people who want to come here and camp that weekend, I think is the biggest impact thing we can do, which also fits in the sense of it's letting us experiment with creating a campground here and creating facilities where people can come and be together, that in the future we plan to build a real legit like licensed campground for hosting retreats. But we don't have to do the official thing now. We just need to make it possible for people to come sleep here for 2 nights. And that's, yeah, I wanted to make sure to insert that amount of context. I gotta let a frustrated dog inside.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, and that's a great segue into talking about the April work week. So I'm going to share this document in the chat. This is public, so y'all can reference this. I think this one is specific about the April one just because it's our first one, but I think future ones will be based off of this document. So when we have a May one or a June one, this will still be the rough framing for it. So we will update it and we'll go from there. So I don't know if people have seen this already. One of the most important things here is I've said it a couple of times, but just keeping in mind, like we're building the ship as we're sailing it here, so a lot of things will change. And I said this in one of the newsletters that I think it's important that if you don't thrive in this change spot, maybe some of these earlier ones might not be a good spot for you to come volunteer. And maybe closer to June or July would be a better place. But if you thrive in uncertainty or structure or creating something from nothing, this is a really great opportunity. So would love to have you here. So our first work week, some of the logistics stuff. It's going to be April 14th through the 23rd. It is on the land in Pudentes. We're asking that if you can come out, we'd love for you to be able to stay 5 days or more. If you can't do 5 days, reach out. We have space available right now too. But we're welcoming anybody. And we do have roles that can be done remotely. So if you're not able to come onto the land, but you want to participate, you can definitely reach out to us. And there's some contact information at the bottom that I'll go through. The goals for this one, I mean, they're pretty simple. Matthew's said this nicely. Like the whole idea here is we want to create capacity for the next group of volunteers to come in and to do more than we did in this work week. So whatever we can do to set them up for success is kind of our goal here. And that means if it is building the campsites, so instead of only having 9 people this time, we can have 25 people, like that's a really big win. If it's something like getting our kitchen set up or finding a chef who can come in and take care of that for us, like that's a big win for us. And a lot of it's going to be the planning and organization. So setting the framework, the groundwork for the future groups to come in and to not have to think about like, how do we get to Coimbra? How do we wash our sheets? Like all these small things that are taken care of in places that have been running for a while. We haven't done that yet. So yeah, anybody who has any expertise in that area, we'd love to hear from you. And so I just want to talk about some of the current projects. Now, we have a small group. I think there are 5 of us committed right now. So what we're thinking is possible are some of these projects. One of the big ones is just kind of doing an audit. So documenting what we have right now, whether that's the kitchen or the land, making paths or maps of the walkways and the areas in the land. Any constraints that we have to consider for the next groups would be really helpful. Mentioned it a bunch, but figuring out how we're going to build campsites for the future work weeks, even if that's as simple as we have we have chosen the land that we want to use. We've cleared that land, and the next group will actually start building it. That's a win too. So that could be creating walking paths or clearing the ground. We know we want to make some compost bins. I hear we have plenty of boars on the land. Maybe we can get them involved in some of the composting. Um, we want to figure out kitchen operations and the housekeeping. And then one thing that we're aware of is we also want to create a care team, and this can be a remote job as well. So for the people who are trying to figure out how they can get to Pudentes, for the people that might actually need additional either physical or mental or emotional support, like how do we have a team of people they can reach out to? I realize that I operate in a certain way, so if I am rubbing up against the way that you like to operate, you should have somebody you can talk to that isn't me. So just giving people opportunities and space to be human is really important to us, and we want to make sure people feel supported when they come out here. We have like rough ideas of what we think a schedule would look like, but we know that doesn't fit every person or every person's capabilities. So we just want to be very open that you can not fit into this exact mold, and still there's a space for you here. So here's some of the stuff I've already gone through as far as the actual logistics. Um, some things to expect. I do want to just flag that because we have limited space, we really do need everybody to reach out and get confirmation from us that we have availability for you to come out to Pudentes. There's just a couple of logistical challenges, like you are dropped off at a train station and then you need a ride from there. Otherwise, you're stuck there. And then we need a space for you to sleep. So we do have an old hotel, but we just need to make sure that there's enough rooms or enough beds for people, because especially in April, the weather's a little unpredictable. It's still cold. It's still rainy. So sleeping outside in a campsite without a tent is not it's not going to happen. So and then the other piece to keep in mind is um, it is rough land. So you're going to want to wear clothes that you can walk through some brambles with, that can get wet or dry, and then just be prepared for a random day that's going to be beautiful sunny weather. So don't pack only heavy clothes for it. Some general information. So room and board are provided while you're there. So all the food will be provided, place to stay. We don't have any stipends available for travel at this time, so we do expect you to be able to get yourself to Coimbra, at which point we will come pick you up from the train station. And here's some basic information on the retreat center, which you can read through. You all have the link in the chat now. Angelos put together a suggested work week schedule, and this can be flexible. We'll go through it the first day we're there and see if this works for everybody. But we want to make sure we have time for people to still practice and do their meditations, spend time together, so have meals, and then also have some free time on the land because it's beautiful and should be explored. There's some wonderful surprises, such as a little lagua, like a pond that you can swim in, and lots of walking trails on the land. It's a beautiful, quiet space, so it's really special. And excited to hear from everybody what comes of that, what they find unique and special about it. Let's see. And then some information on how to apply. I believe everybody here has filled out the interest form. It's a quick little questionnaire about just basically a little bit about you, what kind of things you're interested in or skills you can provide, and then when you might want to come out. So we plan on reaching out to individuals for things like, hey, if we're looking for a chef, we'll reach out and say, hey, that would be really awesome to have you there. And then it also lets us know if we have a larger group, what kind of skill sets we have. So if we're going to organize people into different roles, it helps us do some of that planning before people show up. And that's it for this page. Take a little break here. Any questions? You can put them in chat, raise your hand. Also space Matthew, Angelos, or Ale, if you want to add to anything I said, definitely unmute and jump in.
Yeah, could you unshare for a moment so we can see each other and leave room for people to raise their hands? I'd reiterate what Zach was saying about, well, even think, so assuming the 5 people who are coming next week are of the 15 who are here, that means there's 10 others, even just on this call, who are not going to be here next week. So if you're one of those 5, or in the next work week, if you're one of the 10 or 15 who are there in that work week, there's always more people who are interested in this, who want to be part of this, who are participating, who are afar, who are away. and who want to come in the future. And so always thinking, what can we do to make it possible for them to come here? What can we do to make it possible for them to contribute and participate from a distance? So, like, for example, deciding where the campsite should be. It's really hard to participate in that conversation if you don't know what this place looks like and you don't know what the lay of the land is. And so could we make some documentation that lets people know that? That one in particular is kind of really hard to get your head around if you don't just physically walk here. But there's a lot of other things like that. Um, or similarly, what we're doing is we're laying the foundations for a whole culture of how will how will things work when people are here on retreats, when people are here running retreats for each other? How will decisions be made? How will expenditure decisions be made, right? To buy this versus that. And so all of those kinds of things, this is a like what's the word, like an incubator that where we can experiment, and it's the boundaries are pretty safe because we're just throwing a party, and we're spending the next 3.5 months preparing to throw a party and throwing the party. The failure modes are if there's a fire and people get hurt and we didn't weren't prepared for that, or other failure modes like people have a really crappy night sleeping because we didn't make comfortable tent situations. And so then we'll be able to learn from this time and reflect. And that is part of the work we're asking you to do, is to just participate in that experiment of learning. And the more you can do to keep that in mind as you participate, that it's less about this work must get done now and it must get done right. It's entirely about we are laying a foundation for something that hopefully will last for a very long time and impact many, many, many people. And so let's learn and grow together. Other questions? Quiet group. Wow. I feel like the real solution, if we wanted people to discuss, would be to do small group, break out into small groups, but we had not planned to do that. I guess we have time.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe I can get through the next couple of things. I think it's really like 5 minutes worth of me talking, and then we can do some sort of breakout.
yeah. And
Oh,
I'll use those 5 minutes to think of a prompt for the breakouts.
okay, I'll talk very slowly. Okay. Cool. So I think for April and then future work weeks, there's a couple key roles that we know we need. So logistics support is one of them. Um, that could be a remote participant. We know we want to have that care team, which would be a mix of on-site and remote as well. So if you do have a background in any type of service industry or support, I think especially like if you're a nurse or if you've been in the healthcare industry in any way, like those are potentially a really good spot where we could use your expertise. And the thing that is near and dear to my heart is cooking and kitchen management, is figuring out how we're going to feed people while they're there and what kind of the operations are. So the building itself, and I don't know if we've talked at all about the building on the land, but it is an old hotel and it is a mostly functional hotel. So we have this big, beautiful kitchen that we can use, and we have many rooms in the building. But we haven't done anything to set that up for a large group. So how do we feed people throughout all the volunteering? I think Matthew, that you've had groups that are large, so you've used the kitchen, but we haven't had a 25 person, like how do we feed everybody for a day? So really having like someone with expertise on how do we make sure that the food is bought and provided and then cooked, and what is a sustainable way of doing that is really top of my mind. And so it doesn't even have to be you. If you know somebody who is good at this, we're definitely looking for help. Matthew, you look like you're about to say something.
No, no, no.
And Ale, go for it.
Yeah, well, I'm not participating much now, but when I get there in June, I can handle all that. I can take care of for the kitchen and everything. So no worries. I know how to do that.
So you're going to cook for the festa?
Yeah, I can do that as well if it's needed.
Yeah.
If we don't find a chef, I can handle that as well with help of some people, from some volunteers. I can put them all together and tell them what to do. Yeah, I can do that if we don't find a chef by then.
Amazing.
So no worries. Here I am.
Okay. One hand raised. Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things we can do, even if you're not going to be on site, is we can start putting together like what is the list, like how do we start thinking about that organization and operation? So um, I think we probably circle back on this and start putting some of that together. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to move on through. So future work weeks. So this is another thing that hasn't been decided yet. I was thinking the last week or so, the last 10 days of May would be good for the next one. So if we have April 13th to 23rd as the work week, and then we get about a month to take our learnings and make it better for the next one, that puts us around May 19th or 20th. So if anybody is available for that time and tentatively wants to bookmark or earmark traveling to Portugal for that, this is kind of a save the date, I guess. Just keep that in mind. And I'm going to share my screen again. So one of the, and y'all can access it from the document I had shared, but so just future work weeks, I had put these in here as some potential future dates. And I just want to run through them. So May 19th through 30th, we don't have these dates confirmed yet, but we'll solidify them probably during the work week. And then June we'll have another one. July will probably be more of an open volunteers because we'll be so close to the festa that the whole, hopefully at that point we have a process for volunteers can come, they can stay, 10 days and then head out. And then we'll need people definitely the 4th through the 20th. So if you are planning to come to the inauguration and you're able to come a little bit early and help out, that would be a really great time to have you. Or as well, if you are able to stay a little bit later and help clean up and take care of the land afterwards, I think those are also really welcome times to have people. And then pinning a note that in fall we will have a grape and olive harvest again, and it'll be a much smaller group. I think at that point most of the people will have left the land and gone back to Kathmandu, the people that are coming out for the summer. And that means it'll be more time with the locals and the neighbors. And if you have never made wine or olive oil, this will be a great chance to learn how to do that. And then I have made this kind of little board here for the things that we know are coming up. So volunteer work week in April. When we have the May date, I'll add the May date here, and so you can click on this and scroll through all the information. We have work study on here. It is not open yet, but if people are considering work study, definitely reach out and send me a note. We're trying to figure out what that program looks like, so it does need to be organized and it's not available. I see a hand. Yes, jump on in.
We just want to know, what do you mean by work study?
Yeah, right now the main thing is anyone who's here outside of being part of one of these work weeks, then that would be about coming for, okay, in the long run, we're thinking we will end up with some form of work study arrangement where you're coming for either 3 months or 6 months at a time, and that there is an agreement of the amount of work per week that you're doing, and you're receiving room and board and possibly a stipend, a small stipend in addition to that. And then, but that's like 2026 at the soonest that we'll have an actual program where we're welcoming people in that way. But in the meantime, if you're wanting to come for more than just the work weeks, then we're calling that work study also, where you're here to contribute to the stuff this summer, and you're staying for a sustained time between now and August or in September. And the main thing with that is like we need to discuss before people come. There's only so much capacity for people to come do that. There are a number of people who are already coming to do that. So if you are planning to come at times other than being here for the welcome weekend, or planning to come other than just being in the work weekends, you need to reach out. And it is not guaranteed that we'll have space.
That's
Yeah.
exactly why we are asking. As we discussed with you for at the beginning, we were trying to apply for the resident visa, and we do have an interview with a consulate in April. We don't know how it works, but then we are supposed to stay for a longer time. And in our case, it's not so much a question whether you are feeding us or we are very good at camping. We can cook for ourselves. We don't need anything. I would love to come right now. The problem with us is that the biggest expense is a plane ticket, so I can't come for 5 days here and 5 days there. So I would like to group that, like kind of from June, July, I don't know how it will work with the consulate, up until end of August, let's say, something like that. And I'm not quite sure how we can discuss, because if we buy a plane ticket, if we buy it very late, it will be very expensive. So these are the kind of constraints we have. We are good at organizing, I think. Even at kitchen, I really love that too. It's okay to do anything, but the constraint is the time. And second thing also, because we are planning for a 3-year retreat, as we talked with Matt at some point, then we are also planning for solitary retreats, which are, so mine, it's 3 weeks now in April. So when I go there, I can't go. So I'm trying also to find a way for my time. So if you come back with an answer to us when we can talk for our particular situation, kind of like in a month or in 2 months or 3 months, because sometimes I answer emails. Well, it's hard for us to organize because we are far away. We understand some people are in Europe, and we are very glad for them, and we rejoice in their fortune. But because we are far away, what we would like to know is how we can reach out and have a clear understanding what is possible for us, in the understanding that we don't really need much. We can camp anywhere. We made a lot of camping, and we went a little bit in Himalayas too. We are not afraid of cooking for ourselves, but I can't buy last-minute plane tickets, and I can't come back and forth, and we have our own constraints, which are kind of big. I won't bother the whole group with that, but that's why I want to understand and have a discussion with whomever is in charge, but maybe not contact us in 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, because solitary retreat also are costly and have to be planned and all these things. So I thank you in advance. We are very enthusiastic. We would love to come now if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a good encouragement for us to figure out the process more quickly of how to accept requests to come for work study this summer. So we'll push that to the front of the queue to the extent that we can. And I know that we'll be asking people to provide information of when you're planning to come or aspiring to come. What are your constraints of like the living situation, and also for references of people to recommend you. Ideally, people already connected to Tergar. And so I can tell you that much is going to be there, and then we'll work on figuring out a clear way for people to request to come and for us to give clear answers expediently. Because I do know tickets get more expensive as the summer approaches. So I hear you there.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. I think just to emphasize that, it is, we know it's important, and there's a million things that right now are both urgent and important, and there's just a lot of things that need to get done. And so this call is actually a great opportunity to thank you, to pin that as a thing to put high on the list. And we can have people thinking about it and making a process, because Matthew's one human and can't do it all. So great. Okay. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to move to the kind of open floor questions and answer and closing notes. I've just got a couple things I want to talk about. So one thing we can do is we can have a monthly call, which I personally think would be helpful, where we just have a call with everybody. We can do a check-in. We can talk about these things that we've done since our last call and what things we need help with. And so just trying to engage kind of the community while we're remote. Um, I would love to get some sort of feedback from you all if you think that's a good idea, if it's a bad idea, if we need it more or less than a month. You can throw stuff in chat or unmute yourself. Maybe I'll go with a yes or a no in chat is the way to go. And then I also want to talk about, I'll do the disclaimer here. So because of the current situation, I just want to flag that the visit times for the work weeks are limited to those work weeks. Like there aren't necessarily going to be people on the land in between. There is no support. We might not have power on. So we really need to make sure that everybody knows that when the work weeks end, you're expected to leave. When they start is when you can show up. If you do have an exception, obviously we can be flexible in some cases. So you have to reach out to basically me or Angelos or Ale for permission to do that, and we'll respond to you quickly and let you know if we have the capacity to do it. But really, when planning your trip, you should plan it around the dates that we have set, so that way you don't end up stranded. So with that in mind as well, this winter we're renovating the principal house, the main house, and so there won't be any visitors from likely November through the start of the year. And we'll have some set dates on that, but I just want to put it out right now that it's going to be kind of it's not going to be available. It's too cold to camp. There won't be any spaces in the main the Casa Principal. So just planning around that would be helpful. And I've been using this tool called Notion to organize everything. You can think of it as kind of kind of like a Google Doc that just allows you to organize the actual items a little bit better. Some things are public, some things are not. So I want to just say that we are using Notion in general. If you're looking for something, we've probably got it in Notion. If you can't find it, just feel free to reach out to me, and I can make sure that it's easier to find. But we're trying to use this to organize all sorts of things, from like the volunteers and the work weeks to circles we have called. So like the different groups that are running different pieces of the Tergar Retreats organization. And Matthew, I think now is probably a good moment for you to touch on what sociocracy is and why we use it.
Yeah, sure. I'm looking at the time. I don't think we'll have time to do small groups, and so I'll flag that this meeting has ended up being a lot of presenting information, and maybe we'll schedule in future meetings, or maybe multiple per month, that are more about smaller groups getting to get talking with some facilitation and support to be sharing ideas and co-creating. So it can be more interactive and participatory. But there's so much information to get out there. We just gotta get it all out to you. Sociocracy. So Tergar Retreats, Rinpoche has asked that we set up Tergar Retreats as an organization that's doing as much as possible with volunteers. And adding that with my own personal sentiment that I believe in the long run things are more stable and more adaptable when you don't have a hierarchy, when you allow people to learn how to make decisions together. And in particular, it creates a pressure that is aligned with our values as Tergar of growing as people and cultivating compassion and awareness and wisdom. That if we have the pressure to be working together, building trust and making decisions together, it's a healthy pressure for us to grow in our spiritual practice as well. And so in line with that, we've chosen a structure, like a governance structure for how do decisions get made. How does everything get managed with Tergar Retreats specifically, that we're using this model called sociocracy. I'm not going to say much about sociocracy here. We'll be putting out a lot more information, but the simplest part is that you have circles of people. They are responsible for the stuff that they've been asked to to deal with as a circle, and they have the freedom to deal with that stuff with a great amount of autonomy. So they don't have a boss who's second guessing them. There's not an overarching smaller circle who gets to call the shots for everyone else. It's much, much more autonomous. It's about pushing power to the edges and then doing that in a way that actually is functional and fair and healthy. And so there's a lot more there of how it works and how we're using it. We're doing that as an experiment through the end of this year. So we started it's an 18-month experiment that ends at the end of 2025. So we're like halfway through that experiment right now. And this second half is going to be a much busier part of that experiment, and we'll learn a lot. And there are already a number of circles defined that you'll be able to see in Notion. We'll send out links so you can see the listing of what are the circles, how are they described now, who is in those circles. When you're looking at that, just keep in mind that we're making it all up as we go. We have some loose guidance, and you're part of this process of making it better, figuring out how it can be better.
Thanks, Matthew. I dropped the link to the circles in the chat as well. So if you want to look through, I think there's a lot of good information in there as far as who's in them, and the status of the circles is important too. It's kind of like we want to have one, but it's not really official yet. And I really love the framing of like we're making it up as we go. So a lot of this is, things change, and we know we have to be flexible. And that kind of wraps our call, I think. So this leaves open floor. I'd love to hear if anybody has any thoughts on what we've discussed today, questions about any of this, or maybe thoughts for the future. Like what kind of things are you maybe expecting in this call that we didn't go through? What might be helpful for our next call? Would you like to see Dorji the dog more? I feel like we didn't get any cameos. That's an important one.
Yeah,
Feel free to unmute and talk. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm David Wentworth. I don't see my picture there, and I don't know how to use this stuff very well. But I'm coming for 2 retreats in May, and wondered if I could connect with you guys to talk this stuff over while I'm there.
Absolutely. So, Angelos, could you put our email in the chat for the volunteer stuff? And then I think there's a WhatsApp group that we're using as well, which you all should join. And that'll be the fastest way to get a response from somebody. And that'll be probably the coordinators and then also the people that show up on the land. So, yeah, Angelos, if you could put that in the chat, that would be great. And David, thank you for asking. It's a great note.
That brings up a good point that there are the retreats at Karuna in May. There are 3 roughly 1 week long retreats in May, and then there's a month-long retreat, September and October in Karuna, which is in Portugal, but it's a 4.5-hour drive from here. So just keep that in mind, that if you're planning to come to those retreats and also visit up here, those are not near each other, and the mass transit between them is complicated. And so you will be in the right country, but make sure to accommodate enough for getting in between the two. But if people are coming for the retreats and they want to come volunteer, I think it's a good thing for us to think about in terms of timing of the work weeks.
I wasn't aware that it was a different location. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good thing to note, is these are 2 different locations quite far apart. And if there's any confusion, definitely jump into the WhatsApp chat and let us know. We can help sort that, preferably before you arrive in Lisbon. And then Madeline, I saw you left a note about how you can help remotely. There is a piece too where there's plenty of stuff that is being built and in the process right now. So I'm thinking about, as part of the storytelling circle, what kind of things can we put out there on social media or places where others can say, how do we get a feel for it? So if anybody does have any experience with social media or graphics, or wants to help build kind of the storytelling around it, I think I saw Paul in here. I don't know if you're still in here, Paul, but we have people that are really talented, and if they have the availability to help us tell the story of building Tergar Retreats, I think that's a really important piece that we didn't discuss today. And I'd love to have more conversations about that.
Andre had raised his hand.
Andre.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say I don't have a smartphone, so I don't have access to WhatsApp. So if it's possible to, if it's possible to have some of the communication through the emails, that would be very, very helpful. And also, just one question that's come up is so with this. Are you looking for volunteers specifically for what's happening in August with the inauguration, or for the other circles as well?
Do you want to take this, Matthew, or I can take it too?
Yeah, yes, we will be growing all the circles and also creating new circles. So it's all bubbles, making more bubbles. And so, yeah, we're opening up the doors and expecting that all the activity will flow in. So it's and we're using this welcome weekend as to focus the energy of enthusiasm. But certainly, for example, there are people who are going to want to focus on planning what's going to happen with the terrain and any sort of gardening and farming and caring for the forests. So that's not specifically about the welcome weekend, but those conversations are going to begin. Clearly, there's going to be multiple circles of people dealing with that stuff. As of yet, there is not a circle dealing with that. So that's just one example. So it's not a either or. It's all a little bit mixed, and we're just leaving the space for it all to expand and for people to flow in.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Great. And I will also say, if you have an idea for a circle that you think we're missing or that you could run, like, we're open to it. Suggest it. We would love to hear that. Okay. Anas?
Yes. Hi, everyone. First, thank you so much for organizing this and for all the work already done in Portugal. It's really inspiring. Mate, you have a lot of it on your plate. It's all ongoing and so on, but just a thought that crossed my mind, especially when Zach, you mentioned, the maybe thinking about some monthly meeting and so on. And I just think I think it will definitely be critical now, the communication process going on from now. So whether is this regular meetings, or even as soon as you guys know, or maybe you have more visibility about the coming work weeks, maybe just communicate on that, because I really think it can build momentum. Especially for talking in my case, I don't think I'll be able to for the first work week, but definitely would consider and would love to stay in the loop and go in. So I just think this will be really critical for me. And thank you already for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you, I think, Andre, you said you don't do smartphone. Is newsletter the best way for y'all to get this information? How would you like to receive it?
Personally, mails. Sorry.
Anas, go first, and then we'll have Andre jump in.
No, I was just say, even while having a smartphone, mails are definitely a go-to. So.
Okay. And Andre, same for you?
Yeah. Newsletters are good, and emails, I get them all well.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll make sure that we send out newsletters when we have those dates. And again, the Notion stuff gets updated really regularly too. So not that you need to be checking it all the time, but if you ever have a question and you want to know where we're at, you can pull that up. And once we have it confirmed, I'm constantly in there working and updating. And if you are excited about things like Notion and want to help us, we can use your help. All right. We are at time, everybody. Yeah, if one more question, I can stick around. If anybody has to go, feel free to drop. And I really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you. Andre, one more?
Just a quick question about the April work week. How is it looking for you for numbers at the moment? I think you said something like you have 5 people and there's 10 more spaces. Is that right?
We have 9 rooms, and so we can fit 4 more people, and then we can put multiple people in a room. We have more beds than that. So I don't think we're going to hit capacity. It's in 2 weeks, but that'd be a great problem to have. So we have plenty of space. Do you have 10 people you want to bring with you?
Sadly not. No.
Yeah, so again, we have space, and again, even if you can only come for 3 days in that time frame, and that works for you, we'd love to have you. I think more people is better at this point, so we can make it work.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay. Matthew, do you want to wrap us up? Do you want to say the final goodbye?
Dedicate the merit. So
Yeah.
we don't have much time for we're over time. So just reflect on the fact that all beings want to be happy and want to avoid suffering. And in that way, we're all the same. And that wish is the same in you as it is in all beings. So let's wish that whatever positive things we've generated from connecting in this way and whatever positivity we will create, that it benefits all beings.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon, or we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you
everybody.
very much for organizing this. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Okay. Bye, y'all.